Hello, this is Dick Walton, and along with Greg Dodge, I welcome you to Hawk Watch. There are few natural sights that compare with the grace and elegance of a hawk in flight, a seemingly effortless frolic in the deep blue sky. But many of us, while enjoying and even envying the hawk's passage, want to know more. We want to know just what hawk that is. While static illustrations like this Audubon drawing can show each feather, they often fall short in enabling us to identify a hawk on the move. A bird in flight presents a changing image where precise markings are replaced by generalized shapes, patterns, and behaviors. Yet each spring and fall, birders hike to the mountaintops and journey to lake shores and coast to partake of one of the more spectacular natural events. They gather at such fabled places as Cape May Point and Hawk Mountain, as well as at numerous other hawk-watching sites. This is where the action is, and the hawk watchers are ready. They come to look and, yes, identify their quarry. Watching and identifying hawks is both exciting and challenging. So what have the experts learned about identifying hawks in flight? And what can we do to prepare for the hawk watching season? Let's get started with two North American vultures. Here's the turkey vulture, a large dark bird with broad wings. Note especially the two-toned underwing and the relatively long tail. At close range, the widely spread fingertips, or primaries, are apparent. While turkey vultures are most often seen soaring, they occasionally work low over the ground in search of carrion. This shot shows the TV's dihedral, or V-shaped wing angle, a good field mark. Turkey vultures often display a rocking motion as they make adjustments in the wind. Learning silhouettes and flight behaviors is especially helpful, as patterns often disappear in poor lighting. Now look for the TV, but also other vultures with shorter tails. These two birds are black vultures. Note a series of quick wing beats and a glide. Black vultures have shorter wings and seem to spend more time flapping than TVs. Kettles of vultures are often seen as thermals build during the day. Again, note the rapid wing beats. From below, notice the black vulture's small-headed appearance, short tail, and white wing tips. This final shot also shows the black vulture's square-tipped, short tail and white wingtip panels. Let's move on to the Buteos. Along with the larger vultures, this kettle has numerous smaller Buteos. This is a kettle of broadwing hawks, one of our common Buteos. A silhouette of a single broadwing hawk shows few distinctive marks. This overhead look begins to reveal the broadwing's characteristics. Note the rather chunky body and the relatively pointed wings. Here's a young broadwing. Note the dark tips and dusky trailing edge of the wing, as well as the shape of the wing. It pinches in at the body. In contrast to the adult, the tail appears unpatterned. Now here's an adult. Adult broadwings have a distinct tail band. Here we see all the marks: a candle flame-shaped wing with dark trailing edge and tips, and a broad white tail band. In comparison to other Buteos, broadwings soar in tight circles. Here's a final look at an adult broadwing. Now the red-tailed hawk. The red tail may be our most commonly observed Buteo. The adult's reddish tail is most apparent from below when the bird is backlit. Immature birds have a finely banded, plain brown tail. Note the red tail's broad wings. The dark patagiobars on the leading edge of the wings and the dark belly band are good field marks. Also note how large and bulky this bird appears. Redtails hover at times when they are hunting. Here's a pair of redtails interacting. Certain light, including winter landscapes covered with snow, give the redtail a ghostly white appearance. Here's a final look at the red-tailed hawk. Note how the wingtips curve gently upward. Now another Buteo, one that shows a good deal of color and pattern. One noticeable field mark of the red-shouldered hawk is the banded tail pattern. Adult red shoulders are rusty below and show a series of contrasting bands on the tail. The red shoulder's wings are relatively shorter and rounder than the red tail's. Also look for the rather snappy wing beat. Here we see a size comparison with an American crow. The red shoulder's wings often seem to be bowed forward. Now look for the translucent crescents near the wingtips. While other raptors may show similar translucent marks, the crescent shape is characteristic of the red-shouldered hawk. Here backlighting illuminates the crescents and tail pattern. Now another Buteo. This is the rough-legged hawk. Notice that the roughleg has dark carpal patches on each wing, a dark belly, and dark subterminal tail band. These marks give the bird a contrasty look. Note the white base of the tail of this light form bird. Now here's a dark form roughleg. A high contrast wing pattern is characteristic. No white shows on the upper tail surface of this dark bird. Here's another light form bird. Notice the roughleg's rather lanky look. Our last Buteo is something of a rarity in the East. It's the Swainson's hawk. Note the dark flight feathers, light coverts, and dark bib area. The long pointy wings and overall wing shape give the Swainsons the look of an osprey. Can you see the white rump on this Swainson's hawk? Now the accipiters. Our first accipiter is the diminutive sharp-shinned hawk. Note the Sharpie's buoyant flight with numerous in-flight adjustments. Its wing beats are quick and snappy. The sharp-shinned hawk has a smallish head and thin tail. Here we see the Sharpie's rounded wingtips and squared-off tail. Notice how the wings bow downward when gliding. The wings are relatively broad with well-rounded tips. Here's another profile showing the squared-off tail. Here's a final look at the sharp-shinned hawk. Now the larger Cooper's hawk. Note the relatively straight leading edge to the wing. The Coops is also longer bodied than the Sharpie. Here we see the Cooper's hawk's rounded tail and straight leading wing edge. Most Cooper's hawks appear larger and heavier than Sharpies. Overall, the Coops presents a cross-like shape. Less buoyant than the Sharpie, a Cooper's hawk seems to slice through the air with smooth, graceful movements. Now the largest of our accipiters, the northern goshawk. Goshawks have a heavy body and broad wings. This goshawk is performing a display flight, and thus the deep, almost slow-motion wing beats are exaggerated. The goshawk soars in lazy circles, and even at a distance we get a feeling for its bulk. Now look quickly. Here it is again, an immature goshawk. Even this partially obstructed view gives us a feel for the gose's power and size. Now we'll see three falcons, pointed-winged raptors. Note this bird's streamlined shape and pointed wings. This is the peregrine, the largest of the three falcons covered here. The peregrine's wings are broad at the base. Note here the wing shape, tapering tail, and projecting light-colored head. Peregrines are masters of flight. Their powerful fluid wing beats propel the bird in an easy manner. In a soar, we see the peregrine's characteristic bow and arrow shaped profile. Seeing diagnostic field marks often involves practicing patience. Wait till you see the bird well before making your identification. Here's a final look at the peregrine. What field marks do you see? And now the merlin. A typical look at a merlin involves seeing a small dark falcon moving very rapidly from one point to another. Overall, the merlin is a small dark hawk with sharply angular wings. It often appears and disappears in a heartbeat. One useful characteristic is the merlin's delight in harassing every hawk it sees. In a soar, we see the merlin's relatively broad-based wings are held flat out to the sides. Here's a final look at this little dynamo. The American kestrel is the daintiest and palest of our falcons. Its flight is buoyant like the Sharpies and at times unsteady. Note the kestrel's sickle-shaped wings. When hunting, kestrels often hover. Again, note the buoyant flight. The kestrel's snappy wing beats seem less powerful than the merlins or the peregrines. Here's a profile showing the kestrel's thin-bodied look and sickle-shaped wing. The wings point backward and downward. How many of the kestrel's field marks can you see in this and the next clip? And now one final shot of the American kestrel. This section includes osprey, harrier, and 2 eagles. Here's the osprey, often referred to as the fishhawk. Contrasting black and white plumage is typical. Note also the characteristic crooked wings. Ospreys are often observed carrying fish. Here we see the characteristic pumping motion of the head and body during flight. The angular wing is recognizable under most circumstances. An osprey's wing beat is typically slow, shallow, and somewhat labored. Here's the northern harrier. Its flight, wing shape, and white rump are distinctive. Notice the harrier's rather loping flight. There is a characteristic dihedral to the wings and a rocking motion to the flight. At a distance, we notice the harrier's long wings and narrow tail. In a soar, the northern harrier gives us glimpses of its white rump, but its thin wing and body shape is most diagnostic. And finally, a look at a simple silhouette. First impressions of this raptor are of a large dark bird with a relatively labored wing beat. This is a young bald eagle. Note the broad wings and relatively large head and long tail. Young bald eagles show a variety of contrasting light and dark plumage areas. Note again the board-shaped wings and contrasty look. Even at a distance, the profile of a bald eagle is distinctive. Adult bald eagles are all field marked, with white head and tail and dark body. The head of this adult seems almost to glow as it approaches. Now here's the golden eagle. Look especially for light hackles and a white underwing patch. There, did you see it? The adult lacks these patches. Look again for the golden hackles as well as the white and black tail. The adult's tail is much less contrasty. Note the golden's smaller headed look compared to the bald, as well as the sharply defined areas of light and dark. Our final group consists of two kites. Here's the Mississippi kite, a graceful falcon-shaped raptor. Mississippi kites show dark and light plumage areas both above and below. Note especially how the tail fans outward towards the tip. Can you see the white markings on the upper wing surface? In silhouette, we see the Mississippi kite's thin body and pointed wings that may be mistaken for a falcon. This view shows the bold white head and characteristic tail shape. Our last raptor's identity may be the most obvious of all North American hawks. This is the American swallowtail kite. Even in silhouette, this kite's deeply forked tail is apparent. Note the graceful flight as well as the pearl gray, black, and white plumage. This swallowtail kite is hunting. There, it took a young mockingbird right out of the nest. In this final clip, we see the swallowtail kite feeding on the wing, a characteristic behavior of both kite species shown here. Here's a chance to test your identification skills. Good luck! So now it's time for you to head out to the Hawk Watch. We wish you joy and success in your hawk watching ventures.